Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, mindset elevation coach, intentional living guide, and publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine. Today we're going to be talking with a dear friend. She's a soul sister. Yes, she's an Aspire Mag expert columnist, but in my personal life, she's so much more because she's been a critical part of my personal journey of learning how to nurture myself. And we'll talk about that more in a moment, because I got to tell you, ladies, it's really time to nurture the most important relationship you will ever have, and that's the one with you. Joining me today is Kelley Grimes, counselor, keynote speaker, and workshop facilitator, internationally best-selling author. I was honored to publish her book, which we'll talk about in one moment. She's also, as I shared, an Aspire Mag expert columnist and a self-nurturing expert. She is so passionate, as you'll discover, about empowering overwhelmed and exhausted women to live with more peace, joy, and meaning through the practice of self-nurturing to heal and transform the world. It creates a ripple effect, my friends. She also provides professional and leadership development to organizations dedicated to making the world a better place. Her international best-selling book, The Art of Self-Nurturing, a field guide to living with more peace, joy, and meaning, is transforming women's lives around the world. You can also now get the Art of Self-Nurturing self-paced digital course filled with meditations, yoga poses, self-compassion practices, and so much more. You can learn more at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com. Kelley, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Linda. What a beautiful introduction. I'm so excited about this conversation.
Well, I think now more than ever, my friend, we have got to start loving and nurturing ourselves. I think we're all on this, for many of us, and I talk to many women, on this treadmill of like overcommitting, overwhelmed, life is happening so fast. And what do we do? We put ourselves at the long of the, at the end of the long to-do list. Are you finding that too?
I think that there's an intention that is so important to be brought to all of this because there are so many things, so many responsibilities, so many people to support in our lives. And I think for many of us, it gives us a lot of purpose and meaning. I know I love the work that I do in the world. But what I found is the more that we prioritize everything outside ourselves, we end up in a place where we're so overwhelmed and exhausted and maybe even resentful that we can't show up any longer in the way that we really want to. From that place of compassion and love and curiosity and deeply, feeling deep sense of connection in our lives. And so, indeed, I believe really the key to that is learning how, with a lot of self-compassion, Linda, learning how to prioritize ourselves and seeing that it's not an either or formula, it's a both and. That the more we really find ways to be nurturing and loving and supportive to our own selves, the more that we have to offer, the more light, the more love, the more compassion we have to offer to the world.
And I found that so true. And in the intro I shared, you're the one I turn to when I can feel like life is kind of getting a little lifey, and we've had deep conversations. We've known each other close to a decade. And even when I went through my surgeries, and we have this tendency to go, okay, yeah, I'm ready. But I wasn't slowing down enough to truly nurture myself through different experiences in my life. And you've been a big part. And I just wanted to share that with you. And I know I've shared it personally with you. But not only your wisdom and your message and your book has played a big part in my personal life, it's the whole mindset as a woman who used to put herself at the end of the to-do list. It is a mindset and an intention, isn't it?
It really is, and I think it's the mindset piece that needs ongoing nurturing and support. Um, when we're able to see that caring for ourselves and nurturing ourselves, fills up our reserves so that we really can be present with each other. When we understand that, it's easier to prioritize, right? So I often say, like, the gift of self-nurturing is that the more that you do it, the more you value and really like honor yourself. And the more you do that, the more that you're able to prioritize nurturing yourself. So it ends up being a self-sustaining process. But the first big step, I think most people know intellectually, Linda, that it's a good idea to care for themselves. It's a good idea to be nurturing and kind and compassionate. But it's in the doing of that we get stuck. And I think that's where the mindset piece is so important. It's recognizing that when you have an old belief that comes up, like perhaps the belief comes up that it's selfish, that you have to counter that you have to really challenge that. Is that true? Is it selfish for me to care for myself in this moment so that I can show up more authentically and in the best part of me? Is that really selfish, or is that actually in the highest good of all? And so I think that there's a process of really being reflective and introspective. And a lot of the work that I do, both in the book, with clients, in the online course, is there spaces for that kind of reflective journaling, questioning, being with ourselves, because it's in those times that we really get to understand what are the obstacles to us doing that. Any of us could say that the obstacle is time, Linda. But the fact is that we all have the same 24 hours in a day, right? If we
Mhm.
prioritize all that time for all the other caring that we do, well, then it does feel like we don't have time. But if instead we have these moments that are already scheduled and in our calendars where we say, I'm going to take 10 minutes to do some meditation in the morning, or I'm going to prioritize taking a walk because I know I always feel better and more energized when I take a walk, or I'm going to take time to maybe declutter a part of my room or my office so that it feels nurturing. The fact is that self-nurturing can come in any form, but it is the intention that we bring to it. And the intention really is that I have value and worth, and that I deserve to carve out time so that I can fill up and really feel connected to myself. I don't know about you, Linda, but so much of the time when I get into being overscheduled or too many responsibilities or commitments and start feeling that overwhelm, I feel disconnected from myself, right? And so part of the process of practicing self-nurturing is having times and spaces where we intentionally reconnect with ourselves to check in, because we have so much wisdom within us. And when we only focus externally, we miss out on hearing the depth of insight and inspiration and wisdom and all the things that reside within us, that really support us in living our best lives.
Yeah, and something that I love many things about your message, but there's always a statement you make, and I know you have it in multiple places. I don't have the exact quote, but you truly believe that when we nurture peace within us, we nurture peace in the world. It's a
Absolutely.
ripple effect.
Absolutely. And I believe that when we commit to prioritizing nurturing ourselves, we can heal and transform the world. Because oftentimes our relationships suffer, our work suffers. There's all these, our health suffers. It's such a huge one. All of these things suffer when we believe that we need to be perfect and be caring for everyone in our lives, accept ourselves, and like feed into that self-sacrificing mother kind of paradigm, that a lot of us have been taught. Um, and Actually, we find that when we shift and recognize that we're an important part, like we can have love 360. It doesn't just have to be loving everyone else without loving ourselves. We can do all of it. And when we do all of it, we actually do heal and transform the world. Most people have a deep desire to feel a sense of authentic connection with others, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel appreciated and acknowledged. And when we can start and do that for ourselves, we have the ability to really have those meaningful connections with other people because we can show up and do that for them in a way that doesn't drain us, that doesn't, lead us into feeling like, oh gosh, another person that needs me. Instead, it can be a joyful experience that actually is healing and supportive to the other.
I love that. And just like as you're speaking, you can feel that in your body too, how it creates that ripple. And we're also teaching those we love how to nurture themselves because I think as women, we're the nurturers of the next generation. Our children are always watching us, our grandchildren are always watching us. And we don't want to give the message that we are supposed to be last on our own, in our own lives. So I think it's a role model thing too, for me anyway.
Yeah, and I see that ripple out. I know when I first started my own journey and started recognizing what a difference these practices made, and I started doing workshops. And of course, it was like my friends and clients and things that did my first workshops. And it was so amazing to hear what a difference that it made, even prioritizing like using the bathroom by yourself if, for parents of small kids. Like I had one friend that said, "Oh my gosh, that changed everything because all of the sudden I included myself in my list of the needs of the moment or, what I felt or other things. Like I was part of it instead of seeing myself only as the one." And that's rippled over to her daughters. And now her daughters prioritize and care for themselves. And I see that we can be a positive force in that in a way of modeling. And modeling is different than saying to somebody, like, well, are you taking care of yourself? Are you nurturing yourself? Like, I think sometimes we want to be supportive to other people, but that ends up feeling like another to do on people's list. So, our modeling is the most powerful thing. People notice if you're lit up, if you're joyful, and people notice, like, what are you doing? Like, I want to be part of that kind of thing. And it's a more supportive way to encourage this, you know, transformation really in the way that we as women engage in our lives than just saying to somebody, are you nurturing yourself? Because that can feel judgmental, it can feel overwhelming. But you could talk about what you're doing. Oh my gosh, it's made such a difference for me that I have this beautiful self nurturing morning practice where before I even get out of bed, I meditate, I do some EFT tapping, I set an intention for the day, and I acknowledge a few things that I'm grateful for. And then I get out of bed. So I don't pick up my phone before that. I don't, look for text or emails or anything that will take my focus external to start the day. I start the day with that and then my beautiful cup of coffee and a walk. Like I put it in my schedule. And even this week, I needed to leave early to support my mother-in-law at a doctor's appointment. Well, I just scheduled it earlier so I could still do it. So I don't let that fall out. That's a non-negotiable. And
Good.
I have it in my schedule as sacred self-nurturing.
Oh, I love this. And what a sacred reminder for all of us, Kelly. We're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into this topic, my friends. And again, I want you to visit Kelly at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com. We'll be back in a moment, my friends.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
It's time to begin the adventure of a lifetime by nurturing the most important relationship you will ever have, the relationship with yourself. Kelley Grimes, self-nurturing expert, speaker, and author of the bestseller, The Art of Self-Nurturing, a field guide to living with more peace, joy, and meaning, shares that a self-nurturing practice is not about being perfect or completing another thing on your to-do list, but rather nurturing a relationship with yourself. In the art of self-nurturing, you'll discover the inspiration, examples, reflective questions, and self-nurturing practices that will empower you to become the artist of your own life and see self-nurturing as an art form. Rather than living from obligation and overwhelm, you will learn to cultivate a life filled with self-compassion and self-love. Order your copy today at artofselfnurturingbook.com and receive the Self-Nurturing Starter Kit as a supportive gift.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. With me is Kelley Grimes, bestselling author of The Art of Self-Nurturing, a field guide to living with more peace, joy, and meaning. As she is also a self-nurturing expert, and that's what we're talking about today. And Kelley, right before the break, you shared how important it is to, I love that you said you put it right in your schedule, sacred self-nurturing. And I think that has been a big thing that I've done that's really, really helped me, because we schedule everything else in, but never ourselves. So that one really hit home of how powerful it is. So for those who are listening, Kelley, because I'm sure you've gotten this question before, what's the difference between self-nurturing and self-care? Because we always hear of everything self-care, right? What's the
Yeah.
difference?
It's so interesting because I think when I first developed or started using that, there weren't a lot of people using the phrase self-nurturing. And I believe self-nurturing is about the relationship that you are cultivating with yourself,
Mm,
whereas self-care are activities that you do. Now, self-nurturing, as I was saying earlier, can be any activity, any way you engage with yourself, that you bring that intention to. And a big thing I think about first and foremost is self-compassion. Self-compassion has been one of the most healing practices that I have integrated into my life. I would say in maybe the last 10 years specifically, it has been revolutionary because I used to hold myself to such high expectations and standards of perfectionism. And, I need to say yes to everything. And it's my job to make everybody happy and have everybody supported. And when I wasn't able to do that, which of course it's not sustainable, no one really can, um, I would really be so down on myself and beat myself up. And so what I found is the liberation through treating myself with a lot of compassion and really coming to myself and saying, wow, okay, that didn't go the way that you wanted. What did you learn from that? And speak to myself like I would a dear friend. And so that's really what I see. There's the flavor of self-nurturing is a holistic approach to our lives. It's not just activities, it's the relationship. So it's the self-compassion, it's the self-awareness. Self-awareness is a huge, huge part of self-nurturing. When we care for everybody except for ourselves, we typically stop being in touch with what we feel, with what we need, with what we would want to advocate for. I can't tell you how many women that I've worked with that have said, I don't know what would bring me joy. Like so much of my time in life is spent caring for other people. I just don't even know. And so part of self-awareness, part of being able to make nurturing choices for ourselves, Linda, is to be able to be aware of how we're feeling and what we need and tuning into the body. really tuning in. How's my body feeling? I have a practice of inviting people to place their hand on their heart and breathe for a few intentional breaths and then tune in like, what is the wisdom of my heart telling me right now? Really coming back to this sense. And I find that the huge step in cultivating a self-nurturing practice is actually developing more self-awareness. And the more that women do, then the more that they're aware when they need to set boundaries, when they need to take a break, when they need to rest, when they need to say yes enthusiastically, and when they need to say, you know what, I need some more time to think about that. They'll just be so much more in tune with that. And then they can make nurturing choices as a result. So, self-nurturing, I think some people still want to use self-care. Linda, I am fully encouraging of people to use whatever they need to use. But if you expand it, I would just invite people just expand it out to self-nurturing and see how that feels. Think about a time, when you have really nurtured somebody else in your life. What did it look like? You can explore from that perspective. A dear friend. What would you say to a dear friend if they came to you with this challenge or a mistake they made or something? What would you say to them? And you can start to bring that to your own self in a way that will demonstrate your love and support and nurturing to yourself. That's the exciting part for me. I love in the work that I do because I get to hear from people saying like, I'm so much more confident because I listen to myself. I'm so much more authentic in how I express myself because I'm in tune with that. I'm so much happier in my relationships because I've finally started setting boundaries and the people are grateful. That whole Brene Brown, clarity is kindness. Well, you can only have clarity if you have that kind of self awareness and start with self compassion. Because if you have self awareness but you don't have self compassion, you can use that to keep yourself stuck. But if you have self compassion and then you start to bring more self awareness, like the possibilities are endless.
I love this. Something you said too is treating yourself like you would treat a friend, right? And I know you share about that in the book. And that to me was a big thing when you said that to me in a personal call many years ago. And I'll paraphrase what you said, but you said, Linda, you take care of everyone else. You're so loving and supportive and etc. Why aren't you giving those things to yourself? And I'm paraphrasing our conversation. And I was like, ooh, right? Because we do. We want to give to everyone else and nurture them and love them and care for them. And your message resonates on a soul level with me because it's like we've forgotten ourselves as women. And so everything you just shared was just brought me back to that moment, Kelly. So, what do you say to women who really have a hard time, like I used to, prioritizing themselves, even though like they want to, they know they need to? What is a piece of advice before we go to the next break that you would share with them?
Start small. Start
Ooh,
small. It doesn't have to be huge periods of time, right? It can be 5 minutes. It can be choosing to pause and breathe and check in with yourself for 5 minutes once a day. You could just start with that and then add on. But I think that anytime we commit to something and want to make it a practice, it needs to be small so that so we have a sense of success in doing it. We have a sense of benefit. And it doesn't, and that we don't set ourselves up to feel like, oh, here's one more thing I'm not good enough with. I can't even do self-nurturing right, kind of thing. I really want to encourage just, like a growth mindset around all of it. Just start small and be curious. What are you learning about yourself? How does it feel when you pause for a few minutes and check in? And I think you can put it, Linda, at times maybe you would do something else. Like if you're already doing something that's nurturing, taking a walk, well, maybe you just bring the intention of it being nurturing when you do it. Because I'm sure that there's things that people are already doing, but they don't see it as a nurturing act because it's another to do on their list. So shifting the mindset around seeing it as like this act of love and kindness for yourself.
Oh, I think that's powerful because one of the things that's really transformed in my life, since we've known each other is I used to open my eyes, grab the phone, and scroll and allow everything to come into me. Now, it's been such a commitment for so long. I listen to a guided meditation that I really truly love. It brings me right into my soul. So I'm starting my day in intentional energy, beautiful soul energy. That has been, it's only 15 minutes, but it's a beautiful way to wake up and be warm in my bed and it feels like I'm starting my day in a loving embrace. That's the best way I can, and it shifts the rest of the day.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I have periodically jumped out to do something that needed tending to, and wow, I can tell immediately what a difference it feels to really prioritize that morning time. And it could be 15 minutes, it could be 5 minutes. It could be
Yes.
just breathing, putting your hand on your heart and saying, "What is my intention for the day?" So that you start off in a way that's about what you want versus the world coming at you, you making nurturing, supportive choices for yourself. Makes such a difference.
Yeah, before we go to break, I'll share the other thing that I noticed energetically, because, a lot of women that follow me and listen, and I'm sure you too, are sensitive empaths, intuitives. Um, when I used to jump out of, scroll and all that and bring that other energy in, I almost felt like I was not grounded throughout my day. And when I started this revised practice of starting my day with intentional listening and dropping into my heart, I'm going to tell you, Kelly, my day flows better. I'm more intentional. I'm more present in my life because I'm starting in that grounded, centered, sacred energy. And it, it's made a difference in my life, my relationships, and my business. And Kel, we're going to jump to a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. My friends, you're listening to Inspired Conversations with me as Kelley Grimes. Please visit her at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com, learn more about her book and her course, The Art of Self-Nurturing. You can get all the details at her website, and we'll be back in a moment, my friends.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Your worth is not determined by the number on the scale. You are enough right now, exactly as you are. If you're like many midlife women, you've thought, if I could just reach my ideal weight, I'd be so much happier. But the truth is, what we're really craving is our own love and acceptance. And Sarah Haas is that guide for your journey. Sarah is a women's weight release expert and body love coach and walks alongside midlife women ready to say yes to self-care, self-compassion, and body love so they can become the healthy, vibrant, and unapologetically confident women they're here to be. Her holistic approach integrates nutrition, body movement, and self-care to nurture body, mind, and spirit. Visit sarahhaaswellness.com for supportive resources, programs, and more for midlife women ready to elevate their health.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
To get inside
each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes.
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in
my
shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me is the author of the international bestseller, The Art of Self-Nurturing, Kelley Grimes. So, Kelley, I was sharing the energetic difference right before the last break of since I incorporated, as you've shared, that starting with something small, and for me, it's that guided meditation. it's shifted energy of how I navigate my life. Instead of in that chaotic energy of I gotta scroll, I gotta go jump on my inbox. It's been life-changing.
It has definitely changed my life as well. And I think those practices, once you find practices that really support you, you can see the benefits of it, and then you can find other places to add those practices in. So I have a beautiful morning practice. Then I decided, well, I'd like an evening practice too. I'd like a way of really acknowledging what I've been able to do during the day and give myself credit and celebration for things, to ground in gratitude. And then I listen to a guided meditation at night before I go to sleep as well. And I feel like it bookends things really, really beautifully. And so, it could be then, it could be for some people having some transition between the time they work and go and be with family. And having some intentional transition time of just tuning in and seeing how they feel, what they need. And one of the questions I love to ask is, what would be the most nurturing thing I can do in this moment?
Mm.
Sometimes that nurturing thing might be spend time with my family. Right. So I want to highlight that self nurturing does not have to be a solo act. It can be in community for sure. There's lots of things that we do in community that are so deeply nurturing and connecting. And so, but tuning in, then if I have worked all day and been with people and everything, maybe before I go to be with my family, it's that I'm going to go on a walk for 10 minutes by myself. I don't have small children. So if you have small children, life is, everybody has to adjust to what that is. But even like everybody going on a walk for 10 minutes, just getting out and being able to move your bodies and things. But I think it's really like being creative and tuning in and finding ways that you can plug different things in. You could even do an assessment of what you're already doing. What are things you're already doing that you feel are nurturing, are joyful, help you feel grounded and connected? Because I think it's really important what you were saying, Linda, about starting out the day in a grounded way. Sometimes we need that throughout the day, right? If you're going to have a difficult conversation with someone, if you have a lot of demands around something, having a practice of having a mindful pause where you're just paying attention, to yourself with curiosity and compassion and non-judgment, and just taking a moment to breathe, tune in, and then, proceed to whatever you're doing. Um, I think we can start to have practices that are so woven into our day that it's just how we engage with ourselves and our lives. That can be super inspiring, and they don't have to take long, but it's the practice of it that tells yourself that you are important, that you matter, that you are a priority in your own life. And my goodness, Linda, the ripples of that are very extensive when you really send yourself that message in an ongoing way.
Well, I know the difference it's made in my life, and I love what you said earlier too about the morning ritual. And I've created a transition ritual because I had a tendency for a long time is like, especially when you have a home office, where's the work end and then the transition into the end of the day? And sometimes mine would get real muddy. I'd bring the computer downstairs and say, and continue. Now I have a ritual. I know what time depending on my schedule, what time I want to end each day, usually 2 or 3 o'clock. But I have a ritual at my desk. I close the computer, I organize it for morning, I put my crystal on top. It's like I energetically am closing it. And I'm going to tell you, since I started doing that, when I transition to family time, I actually feel like that energy's closed and now I'm in the family or loving energy. I can't explain it, but just having that one little ritual of the way I close the computer, clear the desk, and put a crystal on top of the computer, that's my transition. That's my self-nurturing transition so I can close the energy. It's been amazing for me. And of course, I love evening rituals as much as you do, and it changes all the time depending. Sometimes it's a gratitude practice. So one of the things that I want to ask you, because you have so many juicy self-nurturing practices and you've shared some here. What are some of your favorites? Like that you go, oh, this is the one.
Well, after I get up after that my beautiful morning practice and have make a cup of coffee, my husband and I play a game every morning at breakfast. Now, he makes board games for a living, so it's an important part of our life, but it is definitely a self-nurturing ritual. And so joyful and fun. And he travels a lot for his work. So when he's not around, I'm often inviting my other family to play games and other things with me because there's something about starting the day just in that creative flow of a game that's super joyful. I love that. I'm also really blessed to have grandchildren. And so the joy of I want to go back just for a moment what you were saying about like closing the energy of work from your home office before you go into something else. I love that, Linda. That is so inspiring because oftentimes I'll leave my office and there are my granddaughters. And so one of our rituals is to jump up and down when we see each other, like yay, we're so excited. And we started when they were really little. They're like 3 and 2, and there's a newborn right now. But there is something about that joyful, like child energy of just like being excited to see other people in that way that is a really wonderful. And certainly you can do that with anyone, right? You can, whoever you see, like greeting them with a hug or some sort of way to really acknowledge other people's presence and your own and just like being happy to be alive kind of thing. I find that to be just so heart opening and so rejuvenating. And that's really what I think of when I think of self nurturing, that there is, because we all put so much energy out in the world, finding ways to rejuvenate our energy, finding ways to fill back up. Now, we know some people feel naturally filled back up when they're alone, some people when they're in community. So you have to really listen to what that is. For you, it might not be jumping up and down, right? For you, it might be something else, but it's really listening and going, what really lights me up? What do I feel so rejuvenated by? For me, it's always being in nature. I'm really blessed to live close to the ocean. And so taking a walk at the beach is a really powerful self-nurturing practice, particularly if it's around sunset or sunrise, something there when I'm really appreciating the profound beauty of nature. I also love gardening. I think gardening, anytime that I'm connected with the natural cycles of the earth, and I see birds, and I see, the way that the shadow is with the light, the way that the temperature is, all of that for me is really, really nurturing. And there's ways that you can plug little bits of that in to your life that doesn't have to be I'm gonna go outside for and take a walk for a half an hour. It could be I'm gonna go sit out in the sun, or if you're in colder areas, like I'm gonna sit near the window and feel the sun on my cheek. It's finding little moments of respite and rejuvenation and relaxation and continuing to feed ourselves with those things.
I love that. And nature grounds and soothes me too. And as I shared about shutting the computer down, one of the things I've picked up in the last probably 8 months is sometimes because you know what I do for a living, so sometimes I can have 13 calls in a day for spiritual mindset coaching, and I'm holding space. So then I need to fill, right? Keep myself filled.
Right.
I do the ritual, I close the computer, and then even if it's a walk just around my house, I live on the water in the middle of the woods. Even if I walk around my house twice, because sometimes that's all I have time to do and not go for a walk. It's that cycle of going, I'm done, I'm tapping in, I'm refilling my cup. Like you said, even 5 minutes, that's all I need. It's this, it's this sacred commitment to yourself is how I'm seeing it now, thanks to you and all your messages and your beautiful book. I get it now. It's it doesn't have to be big things to feel loved, nurtured, and fulfilled. It's the little moments too.
Absolutely. And I think it's hard to get to the big moments if we don't start to prioritize the little moments. Um, I think being able to go to a retreat and having time away for a weekend or et cetera, that has always been like pinnacle in my mind, like, oh, what an amazing thing. And I think I've gone to like maybe a couple of retreats, in my life. That is not what's going to fill me back up and allow me to express my creativity and my light in the world. So it's really finding how can you have a retreat within yourself? One of the things that I love too is creativity. And so I paint and I collage and I draw and I sing and I do other creative things like that. And that's one for me that I've had to be really committed to putting on my calendar because it takes some time. So, what I decided recently is, okay, so maybe I'm not going to get to paint as often when I have a busy week, but I could easily pull out a thing and like do collage or do something else to be creative so that I'm committing to that thing, which fills me up so much, Linda. I love being creative. And so I think it's being curious about how you can invite in those things and maybe even explore. Part of self-nurturing is developing your own growth and potential. And sometimes we don't even know. Maybe somebody wants to learn a new language, or they want to, learn to play an instrument, or do something else that they don't even know yet that it's something that would light them up. So I think it's being curious about opportunities to do things as well. And we're so lucky because there's YouTube and there's lots of ways that people can, kind of learn how to things that we have access to. But maybe a nurturing thing would be to go to a botanic garden in your community for an hour, or go to a museum, or see a play, or go listen to live music. Like there's so many different ways to find what lights you up. And really doing that reflective piece after, like, oh my gosh, I really love whatever it is, right? Live music. That's one of the things that I love.
Yes.
And so
And two
having
things
that.
you said is curiosity and creativity, which I think are so key. We're going to take our final break, Kelly. We're going to come back and I want to talk more about, being curious, being open, because I think that is a key to also a lighthearted spirit. So my friends, we'll be back in a moment. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Kelley Grimes is here with me, and you can learn more about her book and her digital course, The Art of Self-Nurturing, at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com. And of course, all her information is also in the show notes. We'll be back for the last segment, my friends.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Times Radio. FM.
Are you feeling called to clear your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual blockages? That's your soul and environment speaking to you and asking you to uncover all the clutter that is preventing you from living the life you envision. Felicia Messina DeHady, soul coaching master practitioner and trainer and teacher of advanced interior alignment and medicine wheel feng shui, supports her international clientele by creating inner and outer transformation in their environments and their lives by combining elements from her extensive training, experience, and intuition. Felicia is a master intuitive coach, certified by Colette Barron-Reed, and has served as a master mentor for Denise Linn's Elemental Space Clearing certification course, as well as her Ultimate Clutter Clearing. Explore her offerings, including certification courses in Feng Shui, space clearing, soul coaching, and Reiki at FeliciaDeHady.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, Do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that. Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm here with Kelley Grimes, and in our last segment, I want to talk a little more about the curiosity, because I love that you said that, like, be curious. And then you shared something too, so it's kind of a twofold in our last segment about creativity. It comes up in a lot of conversations with overwhelmed and overcommitted women. They're like, I don't have time to play. Whether that playing is knitting, collage, painting, whatever it is for them, it's almost like they stopped letting their inner child out to play. So the curiosity aspect is having that conversation with your inner child, right? Your inner self. So could you speak a little more on that?
Yeah, I love that you picked up on that. I think curiosity is one of my favorite intentions to hold in the world. And I find that when we are overwhelmed and exhausted and starting to feel burned out and resentful, we tend to be in a scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah.
We've given all we can. Super understandable. And curiosity tends to be an antidote to that kind of feeling contracted and shut down, that place that we can get to when we're feeling overwhelmed. Um, and there's a middle step that needs to happen for that. Oftentimes when we're in that overwhelmed state, we're really in the fight, flight, freeze part. We're at that part of our brain, the amygdala, where we don't have very many choices. And creativity and compassion and planning and all those other things actually reside in our prefrontal cortex. And so doing things to really nurture and nourish our nervous system is so incredibly important to being able to be in a space where we can be more curious and we can be more creative and more connected. I often talk about my 3 C's. It's being curious, compassionate, and connected. When we're there, we tend to have a feeling that all is well in the world, and that means we're not in that place of fear and scarcity. We're into a place of possibility and abundance. And we can have self-nurturing practices like you and I have shared that can help ground us so that you're grounding your nervous system and you have more access to the other parts of yourself. Just inviting in curiosity and really saying, like, I wonder. So starting to build a practice of curiosity is like, I wonder, I wonder why that didn't go the way I wanted it to. I wonder why I, overscheduled myself today. It really goes back to the self-awareness piece. That curiosity shuts down judgment. And when we're overwhelmed and exhausted, we tend to be really judgy of ourselves and maybe judgy of others too, right? We've had it kind of thing. And so moving into curiosity towards ourselves can really start to bring in more of that compassion, can start to bring in more of possibilities. Like we only know a small amount quite frankly, about anything. But there's so much more to know. So you can feel if you think about something that you're curious about, you can feel an expansiveness. You can feel an open-heartedness that comes from that. A sense of, you said childlike wonder, just acknowledging like, oh my gosh, what else is here? That's a very open place to be. And it's very exciting to me. It's another part of the practice of self-nurturing is to nurture our curiosity. So we can say, I wonder. So instead of, even when something happens that may have hurt our feelings or something, if we can bring curiosity into it, like, I wonder what I wonder why that happened, or I wonder why I'm feeling this way about it. We can bring more compassion and and nurture that part of ourselves, and then respond in a more nurturing way for ourselves. Maybe it's a boundary, maybe it's, you know, choosing something different, saying no next time. But curiosity, it's essential, I think, to living and really thriving, I think it is, and to create more connection in the world. When we're judgmental, we get shut down. We lose our compassion for each other. We lose our curiosity about differences and other things, and then we don't feel connected. And this whole heal, and transform the world is about being connected with other people, being connected with ourselves first, and then taking that out and being connected with others with compassion and curiosity. So I love that you raised curiosity. And then curiosity just like unfolds into the possibility of creativity. Because when we're curious, we see things from a different perspective. Instead of thinking, oh, that's not going to go right. I'm not even going to take a risk to do that. We might say, oh, I wonder how that could go smoothly. I wonder what that could look like. And it's a more empowered place, I believe, to be in.
It truly is. And we still have just a few minutes left. I want to talk about the other thing that you touched on, creativity. And for me, this is my personal belief, when we're in that creative energy, we're connected with our source of love. There is something about just releasing and stepping into the creative flow that we're connected to all that is. It's where we are the act of creation. We are part of creation. So for me, creating is so important. I may do it through my business by birthing beautiful brands and messages that serve, but I love to paint. I love doing mandalas. For years, I had not given myself the space to be creative. It was like, I'm too busy for that. That's like a luxury thing. And I'm like, now I have a little art project right on the side of my desk. So when I have a break in my schedule, I can go over there for 5 minutes. That has been key to my healing and nurturing myself. So glad that we got the chance to talk about curiosity and how important it is, as well as creativity. We have 2 minutes left, Kelly. Is there a message that you want to give to a woman right now who may not be nurturing herself?
I think the most important message, really, and the message of my business is to that woman is that you matter, that you have value, that you are important just being you. And that part of the gift of you expressing the truth of who you are, your authenticity, your love, your joy, your creativity, your curiosity is really nurturing a beautiful relationship with your own self. Giving yourself that nurturing that you so easily flow out to others in the world, starting that with yourself and noticing what a remarkable difference it makes. And that it can be small and that you can start with 5 minutes, and that bringing a sense of compassion and love for yourself will ultimately heal and transform the world. Like each of us has the power to do that, Linda. I think that's what I love so much. And I'm so grateful that you talked about source, that love energy. To me, that is everything. And when you know that you can feed that love to yourself, that you can show yourself that you matter and that you're important, and that will make the world a better place, just like you want the people that you love to feel cared about and seen and heard and celebrated. Like there's nothing that we can't do as human beings together. So really inviting all of us to transform out of that old paradigm, of nurturing ourselves as selfish into this sense of possibility when we tend and befriend ourselves, that we can connect and be curious and be compassionate and really create our own lives, our own best lives in the way we want, and the world in a way that we feel really good about living in.
I can feel the love in your message, my friend. And thank you, Kelly, for joining me today, for sharing your message. And I want to be sure I mention your website one more time for all the women who want to visit. Go to cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com. Grab a copy of Kelly's book, The Art of Self-Nurturing, a field guide to living with more peace, joy, and meaning. And while you're there, just look for the button that says course at the top of the website and learn more about the self-paced digital program, The Art of Self-Nurturing. Kelly, thank you again, my friend.
Thank you
Blessing.
so much, Linda.
Until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.